In this section, we will look into how to export the image or the animations from Cinema 4D and get ready for compositing. So let's take a look at this scene. To make sure that we don't have the background, that we don't want it to be there, we can always right-click on the layer and get into the render tag and go to compositing. So at the compositing here, you can just untick the scene by camera. And right now, if let's say I get into my render setting, under the shift, I turn on my alpha channel and I'll be able to render the objects only without the background. So let's render. Now at the render here, we can go into layer. Right now we have the background, and if we go into single pass, when I click onto the alpha, meaning that we have these alpha channels and we have these object channels. The white one will be our object and the black part will be transparent. So by looking at this, we will know that we have a transparent background. So get back into image and get back into history. And now let's take a look how to set up the whole scene. I just turn on my plane and this is what I have. And right now we need to make sure that our setting is correct. So let's head into render setting. And at the output here, you need to make sure that your resolution is correct, which is 1920 1080 if you want it to be HD size. Resolution for screen will be 72. And frame rate, it depends on your animation. And right now we are rendering current frame. Current frame meaning that right now is frame 7, which is where our playhead is. You can also choose that rendering with manual. You can set in from which frame to which frames, or you can render all frames. So let's go back to the current frames and let's head into the save, and you will be able to see that right now in my save, I take it. And at the file here, you can set where you want to save your files. Right now, I have this folder called resources. I just double click into the resources and I put here test scene. So press save. And for format, normally I'll go for PNG since we have alpha channel. And remember to tick your alpha channel, and that's it. You have your file saved. Once you render your image, you will be able to find it at this folder. Now let's turn on our global illumination again, and let's take a look what we get. So now you can locate this from just right click onto the image and show the file in Explorer or Finder. So once you click, you get the 0007, meaning that you are in the 7th scene. So you have one full image, but if let's say I want to change the colors during the post-production, meaning that when I'm in compositing, I need to add a glow here and change some colors around. How can I change that? So let's head back to our scene. So right now at the plane here, you can make sure that you can choose the plane, right click and go to your render tag and go to choose your compositing. So at this compositing tag, you can see that there is this object buffer. So click onto the object buffer, enable. So this will be buffer 1, meaning that when you render the whole scene, it will separate out this layer for you. So for this tree tunnel stuff, I think it's for the models. These three, they share the same object buffer. So let's set up for all. This is the cube and both of them share the same material. So I can just add in render tag, compositing, set it to 4, 3, 4, 4. And we have this cylinder, which is the glass cylinder, render 5. And this tube, they share the same materials. And just make them into number 6 buffer. So we have 6 buffers in the scene. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, once we have this object buffer, we need to head back into the render setting and we get into the multipass, and in the multipass, we have this object buffer. So we click the object buffer and turn the multipass on so that the object buffer is red. Now I need to keep on adding in the object buffer so that I have 6 in it. So with this map, we will be able to get the alpha channel for each sections. So get back to save here. Once I have this multipass turned on, I need to turn on the save here in order for me to save. So let's do it again. At here, I just open it up, type object buffer, and I just save everything here. I click this for the naming, and I just change it to test scene. It will help me to rename object buffer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The format I change to BNG. Now the others I just leave it as per. So once I have this, when I click render, it asks me whether I want to overwrite. Yes, I want to overwrite for now. So now you see we have render. There is still one image, but when we get into layer, and we get into single passes, right now we have this. This is object buffer 1, which is the background. And this is the object buffer 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So which is the correct object buffer that we have set. So let's head into the folder and see what we have. Right now we have this object buffer. You see the naming. They name it properly for us. Normally, if we want to render the whole animation, we will test out one image to make sure that our render is correct. By now, you'll have your settings correct. You can just go back to the output, and now you see that there is this animation. I can render it full, but right now, because my animation stops at frame 30, so I can just go to my manual and I start from frame 0 to frame 30. So I can just save my file properly. And if you have nothing to do, you want to look into your rendering, you can just straight away click onto the render to picture viewer, and you will see the image render one by one over here. But if let's say today you have the other jobs need to work on and you are going to work on the other scenes, let me stop this. You can always save your files and close everything, and you can go into the render and open up your render queue. And what you can do is just go out and make sure that the files that you have is set up correctly, and just drag and drop your C4D files into the render queue. So you can just add in all the files that you want to render one shot, and you just click render and it will render it on its own. Right now you know that this is 0 frame to 30 frame, and total that is 31 images that you are going to get by the end of the render. So you can just leave it there and you can do your other stuff, continue with your Cinema 4D, or go grab a coffee and come back to see your files is ready for your compositing.